Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm Pastor Isaac, and we are here again at the Second Baptist Church. And last time I was here with my brother, Pastor Semaj, and we were about to go to the Asbury Park protest on Monday, June 1st, and we had a great conversation about what's taking place, and know that it blessed a lot of people. And what we wanted to do now is have kind of a follow-up to that. And what we have here today are some of the bigger components of the protest that made it happen. We have Mike and Felicia and Chris. If you guys could just introduce yourself and share a little bit about your role in Asbury Park and in the protest last week.
My name is Chris Rockwell. I was invited there by Felicia, and I'm very grateful for that. And I basically, I guess, was brought in to talk to the white people, I think. I think that was my job.
And that's true.
Right.
It's a great way to put it, Chris.
Great job, right?
I hope I did a good job. Right?
Yeah.
You really did. I was inspired. And how your blatantness, I was privy to the speech a little bit before everybody else got it. Right, he didn't have to share it to me because I didn't censor anybody. You could say what you want. You only had two tasks. You had to come in peace, make sure you promote peace, and to send them home with something, right? Something tangible they can do. That was the only task. Other than that, I can't tell you what to talk about. I don't know what's on your heart. Speak about what you want to speak about.
So tell us who you are.
Yeah.
My name is Felicia Simmons. My name is Felicia Simmons. I'm one of the organizers of the event. Hence, I said one of the organizers because there were other organizers. Great people, Caitlin, Dwayne, right? Just great people who came together in a matter of days, that made a good storm to put something out there. I think our task was to kind of get the swirl before it turned into something not nice. Right? Before it turned into a wave of ugliness, to kind of get everybody to know that you're not hurting alone, and that we need to do something and we have a purpose. So it actually started out over Marcus Gibson, right? That died on a parkway a couple days before Mr. Floyd, and we started talking about it because we found out about it, but I found out within 12 hours of the incident. The Attorney General has a policy where when there's police shooting, there have to be, within 24 hours, it has to be notified to the public. So they posted to their page, and but there was no information. We had no idea what happened, and the days went on, and we still didn't know. And then it rolled into Mr. Floyd, and then our hearts broke. And we started moving, like I said, into a perfect storm, and it rolled into something that I guess we caught a moment in time, and that was a moment in time because it rolled into like a great weekend of other protests, but then Mychal's protest of consciousness, which is all important. We all have to have that balance we talked about earlier.
Share a little bit about that, Mychal.
Peace and love, everyone. My name is Mychal. I'm co-creator of KIDS, Conscious Youth Development and Service, and I was at the protest Monday and lost in the sauce in the crowd and trying to get a little closer so I can hear everything going on. But I was happy I was able to absorb a lot once the crowd kind of dispersed and split off into the march, and then I was able to connect, because I think in essence that's what we need to do, is start connecting a little bit more, and all of us coming together to be part of the solution, and it really inspired us to, because I think there's aspects that have to be inner, outer, and there's a lot of healing that needs to take place over the generations of oppression from our ancestors, ingrained in our DNA, that we need to heal from, as well as look at the systems that are actually causing oppression and injustice, and start to break those systems and dismantle them. And so our rally Sunday following was a Peace in the Park, and it was mainly to help people look at themselves. And what I was happy about was there was a lot of people who were unaware up until George Floyd there, and who were becoming aware as the world is, and they're now looking like, what can I do? And one of the calls of action our co-creator Rodney talked about there is you have to look at any system you're a part of and be the change in that system.
Yeah.
You know, and
Yes.
that's where it really trickles everywhere. When we all take accountability for ourselves, our actions, our associations, and everything we're a part of, and looking at these systems and start to disrupt them if they're causing oppression and injustice.
Yeah.
And start to look at more equitable and solutions for our community, so we can all come together. And one of the aspects, and I'll just stop here. Before our Peace in the Rally protests, Friday, Saturday, we went out to the community, walked up these streets, Springwood Ave, and just promoted. So we're in the village, we're at the corner stores, I Mr. Pizza, all the places we wanted those people to come. And what we heard, a lot of trauma. You know, we heard a lot of trauma that they were facing on these blocks.
Yeah.
You know, let alone looking at systems of justice, but it reminded me of, okay, oppression is not just overnight.
Right.
It's generational. It's back to the 70s, 80s. It's back all the way to the ages of slavery and prior. But so we have a lot of work to do internally.
Yeah.
You know, where people were saying, you know, rape, sexual abuse, gang violence, drugs, all the things that are plaguing the community are in a lot of effects caused from these systems, and we have to understand what is caused. So I think there's an inner-outer systemic change, and the inner change, so we can thrive and become whole again, and be the solution.
I think it was amazing to see the transition, I feel, from hopeless to hopeful. Because I know when this first broke, you know, when George and the video surfaced, it felt for a lot of people, a lot of conversations I had with people, Pastor Semaj and many others, felt hopeless. Like here it is now again. This is a tragedy, and now I feel, and yes, like it's been generations, and it's enough is enough. But I do feel hopeful that so many people are speaking out and speaking up and are sick and tired of this. And how do we take advantage of that? You know, let's do something. We know there's something that needs to change. Let's not let this moment fade and then just get back into, you know, the way things used to be. How can we do that?
Can I say something real quick that when you talk about this sense of hopefulness, I think the key change, and Mychal alluded to it, was when most times before this, when these incidents happen, it was what did they do, right? Whoever the person was that was murdered or slain or oppressed, you know, that what did they do? But now more than ever, this is where my hope comes from, that there are more people saying, what can I do? That people are no longer looking outward and no longer saying, you know, pointing a finger because that's easy and making it some external, you know, reality that I don't really have to involve myself in. But now they're taking it personal. And the fact that the country is taking it personal for the most part, right, really just rings and tolls the bells of hope for me, because now we can begin, as Mychal is saying, right, this inner confrontation with myself, my history, you know, whether it's one of trauma or whether it's one of, you know, of ill-gotten means, right? People are now saying, you know what, what can I do? And they're turning the lens inward, and that for me just amplifies the hope that is present in this situation.
I like to say it's a perfect storm, meaning the pandemic forced you to take time with you, right? It forced you to sit down with yourself.
Absolutely.
It ripped you open and made you exposed. And then when you seen that, because you're already exposed, you couldn't hide and going to work. You couldn't hide and not watch the news. You couldn't hide in any other place. You couldn't hide with a group of friends so you can get that whole mob mentality. You had to sit there and had nothing but to watch this on TV. Which hence I'm going to say, I seen the initial. I didn't watch the whole thing. I can't do that to my heart, right? I can't force that trauma down myself, right? I know what it looks like. I can feel it, right? I can't. And how many times have people watched this tape, right, repeatedly, and inflicted that trauma, and you're already exposed. So now it's people who want to feed something good. Where do they go, right? I have tons of messages on our page of people just sitting there talking about, I want to come, I don't know what to do, right? I had this mother who was so scared because she just lost her husband, but her daughter wanted to come to the rally. And she didn't want to stop her, right? She didn't want to stop her, but she just wanted to make sure that her daughter was safe, right? And when people like us, when we have the space to be in front of people, we have the certain obligation to pour into something and lead them in a direction that is healthy and hopeful, right? But again, like I said to Chris when we were talking, I don't want to just sell hope.
Yeah.
Right? I want to give them something tangible they can go home and do.
Yes.
Right? To make themselves feel useful, right? And know that the power lies in us.
So what's our homework?
Right? Our homework is, first one of the take homes was, like Chris was like, address your uncle across the table.
Yeah.
And call it out.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Right? And then Randy, who had a specific task about Citizen Review Board and to call and add your name to this petition, right? So we can push the Citizen Review Board. He has over 12,000 signatures, right, to the from that.
What is the Citizen Review Board if somebody doesn't know what that is?
A Citizen Review Board is exactly what it means. It's a group of people from the community who sit and go through the workings of the police department, right? And goes through the complaints, the goods and the bads, and everything in between, right? Just in our state, none of them have any real weight. Right now, Newark is in court with subpoena power. What we have to do is actually push and change legislation to give a weighted Citizen Review Board. That's tangible. We push our legislators to draw up these laws and then have it go through our certain forms of government, our Senate, and then get signed into law by a governor. That's what we do. And how we do that is we hold these people to task that sit in office. They sit in office for us, right? There's no ruling class here, right? They sit in space for us, right? And if you don't like the people where they sit, your obligation is to put somebody else there that you do like. Or if you can't find anybody, put yourself there, right? If you think that you know what's best, and you have that weight of that responsibility, you put yourself there. If you feel that you can make those decisions, that weighted decisions, and that's where we have to understand it's for the people, by the people, right? In the people's space, there's no ruling class, there's no legislating class. It's people, right? You don't need, I was telling a young person, to be on the Board of Education, you need a high school diploma and to be able to read, right? That's it. City council, high school diploma, and be able to read, right? All of those things, because it's the people. You hire administrators to do the job. That's why you have professionals. But the idea is supposed to be community grown and then figure out how to do it. I was taught we are the trainers. We say what we want done, and the paid administration figure out how to do it. It's not the other way around, and we have to realize that.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
good. So talk to your uncle.
Talk to your uncle.
Citizens Review Board.
Citizen Review Board, but also push your legislators.
Yeah.
Right. The dismantling. Everybody's talking about dismantling of cops, which won't happen. Instead of in certain little towns where you can have state troopers come in and you don't need a police department.
Yeah.
Right. But dismantling really means reallocating funds. We have a police department that receives tons of overtime. I'm probably going to get myself in trouble. I always do. Right. Right. We don't need a cop standing at the corner, right, when they're doing construction. That can be somebody from the community. We can allocate that fund that they're making triple and double overtime into a different kind of situation. That's not mine. That's a community leader named Dwayne Smalls, and they're called flagmen, right? That specific one. We can take that money from certain committees and extra things, the union, and all that other kind of stuff. Again, getting myself in trouble, right? All the different facets on cars that we pay for, and time to sit in office and all these special departments, and put it into basic funding of, again, protecting, serving the community. Extra hours we put into the beachfront. If they want extra security, right, then pay for extra security. I do hear they pay a little bit more, but they can pay for their own security block, right? it's protect and serve of the whole community.
Right.
And then you can start funding different programs, right? We can invest more into the PAL, right? The police youth athletically, right? We can start doing more things like putting it back into community instead of putting it into militarizing our police force.
Yeah.
Right?
Let me inject something in that too. I think Camden, New Jersey has a wonderful example that from I think 7 years ago, they fired everybody on the police department, including the chief, and everybody had to be rehired. Everybody had to go back through psychological examinations and counseling and training. Because one thing a statement that I thought the police chief said that is so powerful and poignant that needs to be reverberated throughout every police department is he said it's easier to build a culture than to change a culture.
That's good.
And I think we waste too much time, and they're wasting too much time trying to change a culture.
Yeah.
Right? Don't change it, build it.
That's so
and
good.
and you know, and if it takes firing all the police and only hiring the police who qualify to meet the new standards of this new culture that you're building, well, let's do that. Right? And so I really think we need to take drastic measures that go along with reallocating funds and things of that nature. But we have to build a culture that we want, not try to change this culture, because it just won't happen. And sadly, yes, we're going to lose a lot of police, and yes, it's going to be a lot of work on the chief and everybody else to have to hire more police. But the end result is so much better and worth it, than whatever work you're going to put out to make it what it
Right,
needs
because
to be.
that's short term, the worries and like that. That's short term, not long term.
Absolutely.
Long term, it's so beneficial.
And I'm going to add on, because I was talking to Amir Khan from Atlantic City. He's a pastor out that way. Camden. And he was saying, we're going to add on to that, is make sure that we do more community policing.
Yeah.
Make sure that the people, because that was part of the bad part that happened when they did that. All of the good community cops were let go too. Right? So if we're going to add on, we take from, good practices and add on. So we make sure we have a stimulated undergrowth of community police, right? And people that actually come here and respect the culture, right? And then also, I'm not saying that you can't come from somewhere else, but you have to respect the culture. And the AG has a lot of great initiatives if it talks about licensing our police, right? That's huge, right? Because right now we can't go around police unions, right? There's no way around it. The culture is thick, but if you get enough strikes, like if you're a beautician or a barber, you get enough strikes on your license, right? You lose your license. And it's not like if you get fired from your job here and you're going to go over to, Neptune and get hired, right? No, if you lose your license, you lose your license, right? And that's a wrap. So simultaneously, like Semaj said, and like you all said, and like Mychal said, we have to do all of these things together, right? This way. Someone said they don't like horizontal leading, but it has to be horizontal because everything has to happen right now. So you have to have people building over here, make sure that we push for this, the Attorney General's. Then he has initiatives for training, crisis training, right? That's the big thing, right? Because the person on the street don't have a responsibility, right? We don't, the average person don't have a responsibility. That cop with that gun has a responsibility, right? The cop with the gun has to keep his level head, not the person that's a citizen. That's why he didn't become a cop. Right? You became a cop. So you have to keep your level head. And if you have fears and biases, you need to check that at the door. It's not my responsibility that you're scared of me.
Now, let me ask you this. How is... Mike, why don't you get in this?
I want to touch on that because I actually had a friend I grew up with, and I've known since childhood. I grew up in Neptune, and he was actually from Belmont. And hopefully no one could recognize who I'm talking about based on
There's a lot of people in Belgium.
What's his address?
But he worked in Asbury in law enforcement for a little bit. And I seen him a couple of times, and there was a time when I seen him. This is my early 20s, so I look different and everything like that. And I seen him, I pulled up into a location, and I was getting out of my car, and I seen him looking at me. He's off duty, right? And we're not even in Asbury Park. We're in Eatontown. and he's looking at me. He's looking at my friend, and I can just see something in him. I'm like, man, you don't recognize me, brother? It's me. You know, but when I got closer, he recognized, and his guard kind of went down. You know, but he told me he just transferred out of Asbury because he couldn't handle the stress. He couldn't handle the trauma that he was seeing, you know, from responding to a call and not knowing what you're getting yourself into. And, you know, he put him on edge. Yes. You know, and I'm looking at him, this man is in fight, flight, or freeze. But if you put that into a badge and uniform and you have a gun on your side and you're pulling up to somebody, and that could be very damaging. That could be a tragedy, you know. And as it reminded me of, okay, you need to take care of this, you know, because how much are you absorbing? We've seen it in recent local police departments over the last years and in surrounding towns, but we have to take care of ourselves. It's all of us, you know, that are absorbing a lot of trauma, and if we're not taking care of that trauma, we're just going to react in the best way that we know how, and it's not the best ingredients to have, you know, weaponry and things of that on your side. So I just want to mention that because I think it's very important.
Hurt people hurt people. That's just that's just facts.
Oh.
When you had that trauma and you carry it around, you're going to pour it into other people unless you're healing it yourself. So what your friend did was he took personal accountability. And that's what I think one of the things you work on so well with people is that you have them take accountability for themselves and take a personal inventory and take care of themselves. And I think it's really important that someone took a step like that, said, you know what, maybe this isn't the job for me. You know?
Maybe that's not the place for me.
So there's a mental health piece of this for sure, right?
We suffer,
for sure.
and
Absolutely.
I don't want to say the person's name, the police officer's name, because we posted something and the family was hurt about it. But there was a lot of mental health issues running through local police departments that need to be addressed on a regular basis. Not once a year, not a couple times every other. On a regular basis, they need mental health checks. Right? They need to understand that, and we need to find early on if there's an issue. Right?
It's a stressful job.
Right? Not just dealing with people with mental health, but our own mental health. And for them to know that so we can catch it. We need to sit him at the desk for a little while. We need to send him to therapy for a bit. He might need to go sit and go to a rehab unit somewhere. Right? We check that
Go to a meditation.
early. Right? He might need some medication.
We had a little plug, not a little plug, but we had a police officer who before joining the force, the goal was getting on the force, and you know, but she would come to, I'm trying not to, but you know it's a she right now, but she would come to our meditations. We're doing Mychal right here in Asbury Park, and she was actually at our rally. She's now on the force, and she told her sergeant, she said, the person you see now is not the person you would have seen before you going to the meditations. You know, but seeing how that is, you know, I'm not preaching meditation or anything, but just something,
inner space,
something for you to just let go of everything you absorbed during your shift.
So, Mike, let me push meditation and prayer. Right, and I know prayer sometimes takes the form of meditation, but I do think that is vital.
Yes.
Right, there has to be some inner cooling of the flames, right? That really helps people to get ready. And policemen being an officer is a high stress job. Being a pastor is a high stress job, right? There are many other high stress jobs. But when you don't have the tools necessary to deal with the stress, it becomes, detrimental.
Yep.
Pastor Isaac and I, we have a bad day, somebody's feelings are hurt, somebody misunderstands the scripture. A cop doesn't have a bad day, somebody's family's planning a funeral. Especially if that person is a African American male, female, or Latinx or whatever the case may be, because sometimes the narratives that officers tell amongst themselves creates the stress, right? And I live in Neptune, but I've seen in different places where cops have been just walking the street with their hands on their weapon, just cruising down the street, it's as though, okay, I'm ready to shoot. And it's like, I'm not here to serve, I'm here to shoot.
Yeah.
And whoever comes at me wrong, looks at me wrong, I'm going, there's something inside, right? And of course, as a pastor, I would suggest prayer. But I would also suggest both prayer and meditation and exercise and counseling.
Talk about it.
That's right.
Yeah, don't keep it in, because it's whatever's in you is going to come out.
Absolutely.
And it needs to come out the right way, in a healthy way. And I know that there's probably a lot of, there probably is a lot of police officers right now that think everyone's against them.
Mm-hmm. No.
But we need to get to the place where we're not against you, we want to work with you.
Right.
Exactly.
And we need to have some, and I wish we had a couple now where we could have some police officers that could be in this conversation to be able to talk about some of the things they know need to be changed. And are you finding that there are some police officers you've been talking to, they're willing to admit there needs to be change?
Oh, definitely.
I definitely, after the rally, because I received death threats to do that rally.
Wow.
Someone threatened, and my son actually was the one who found it, right? And on our page, he was checking the page for me. And then told me to get out of town and I ain't belong here and go back to your town. And I obviously knew that wasn't a person from this town, because just about everybody in the town knows me. Right? So
They would have said it already.
yeah, they would have said it already, right? So, but we had to take it serious. So we had Officer Young and Officer Cerise, who I love, right? That's community homegrown, right? They're from right here, right? They were my personal protection, right? They stood on the side of the steps through the rally, and after the rally, they walked me to the car.
Right.
And made sure I got in it, right? And Wayne took me home, and because I wanted to walk home, but they was not trying to hear it. Because that's how I have to. I like to be still in myself, right? And so I meditate and I pray most of the time at the same time. Then I might fall asleep. Either way, how it works out, right? How the peace falls on me, right? And so I'm walking home, and those are the people that I actually love. And I know there's more of them than, say, a bad seeds, like the one who cussed me out after doing the street festival, right? And or the one who had his hand on his gun talking to my 12-year-old son at the time, right? I know there's more of them in the situation, but we have to make sure that we clear a safe space so they can speak and be more freely with themselves and do exactly what they do, is take care of their community. Right? It's exactly, we don't want to defund them. We want to empower them.
Absolutely. That's beautiful. Absolutely. And we want to build, and I can say too, you're absolutely right. I know that there are some great cops, right, in Asbury Park, Neptune Ocean. I know that there's some great cops, and I personally know some of them. My charge to those that I do know is to speak up and speak against those who are rogue, right? Who are not being fair, who are have this bias, this undealt with stress that they are projecting upon the citizens, who are not there to protect and serve, but are there to grab what they, get all they can, and then retire and get the, good benefits and retirement after 20 years or so. So my charge to those good cops who are there to protect and serve, who do love the community, who do see the humanity, or as I call it, we'll call it the Imago Dei, the image of God in each and every individual. For those who do see it, we have to, I encourage them and empower them to muster the courage to speak up. And, and here's the thing, we have to continue to support them, because when they speak up, there are forces in power that will ostracize them, that when they, say that they have noticed something in a cop, they will get moved to other areas. They'll get reports, and I mean, just all these types of things will begin to come against them. And we as citizens and community have to say, no, we're on their side. And this is wrong. You can, and so that's another part of the culture that has to be built and not changed, which is that that a cop has to be feel safe and secure to speak up against another officer
Yes.
who they know is doing the wrong thing.
I remember in the protest, and I don't remember who the speaker was because it was hard to see. You just had a megaphone, but you guys, your voices, we still it was great.
Next year we'll do better.
And
they turned the power out. They turned
post
the box.
office?
The post office closed the box and put a
Oh my God.
lock on the power base.
And I remember one of the speakers, and they were saying, why is it that the black community is always the community that's the most enraged and the one speaking out and thinking that they have to solve this problem that was done to them?
Right.
When is the white community going to step up and solve this problem that they put the black Americans in? And that hit me. That hit
was
me
Randy.
strong. That was Randy. And that I was with Pastor Semaj, and I was like, wow,
Yeah.
that was for me.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons why I want to be used. And I'm not saying everything perfect, but I don't want to wait until I have everything perfect in my dialogue to speak up. And I feel like that's also what maybe some police officers can do, is not, just wait for, the black community to speak up, but no, we want to speak up. And have a forum for that, I think, is so powerful.
I have a comment for that.
Yeah, please.
It's very difficult when you do have a platform to be willing to learn in public, because it's very vulnerable to do that.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
To be willing to stumble over your words and say, you know what, I take that back. Maybe I shouldn't have said that like that, or maybe I need to reflect more on that. It's definitely a thing that white people need to do more, because it's so vulnerable, and commonly your privilege doesn't really require you as a white person to be that vulnerable.
Right.
You don't really have to open up, like things are just easier because of that privilege that you innately have because you're white. And I think that for another step, like going even up a step from that, is a police officer doing that, because because of your job, you have even more privileges. You got the perks, you got the package,
You got the excellent
you got,
bit of
right,
power.
you got, I'm not even getting a speeding ticket if I get pulled over going for you, you know? For you to speak up means not only you have to be willing to be vulnerable just as a white person, but also you have to be willing, because you might not have all those little pretty perks. You might next time you get pulled over by a cop, they might not be so kind to you.
That's so good.
Right, because they don't think you're one of them
Anymore.
There's a fraternity there,
Absolutely.
and it's hard to give that up. That's what it's just like. It's hard to give up your white privilege to use your platform to boost someone else up. It's it's got to be hard for a police officer to say, "Oh, I got to give all this up and speak up." But if we support them,
Absolutely.
they will feel more encouraged and empowered to do that.
Absolutely.
They need to
Got
be that.
Yes.
And I think we need to do it again, right? I've been banging at the door for a long time. I didn't start with the rally, right? Right, and I'll continue working way after the rally. Most of the time, completely misunderstood, right? Completely not accepted by any group, right? By anybody. But when you put a task in front of you, you just have to keep going. Trust that God it has already ordained the steps, and He keeps showing out for me. So I can't say anything about that.
You're doing amazing.
Right? But look, it's real rough times, and it's not a me, it's a we. And I've never, me and my bestie, we say all the time, if I win a lottery, which is hard because I don't play, but she plays. It's beneficial for her. She plays all the time, right? She says that if we win, we're going to give each other $1 million. Who wants to be rich alone, right? Who wants to be on the mountaintop alone,
point.
right? So we say we're going to do, but I think it's more beneficial to me because I don't play,
paying for the tickets.
and she buys the ticket, right?
It's a good business
She buys
plan.
the ticket, but that's really it. If I get there alone, what's the purpose? What's the point? Right? A long time ago took a much easier path, right? Really took a much easier path, but it seems that I always have to go that hard way forward, but it's for everybody, right? If I stood out there alone, that wouldn't stop the work I did the day after, right? I was expecting 30, right? My friends were expecting, the rest of the group was expecting like 1,000. We got, numbers keep coming back. There's more numbers every day. Right, closer to 10 that we heard, right? Look, that's huge. But if we didn't tell people that there's work to do, right, tomorrow or today when you go home, then it was just us stroking feel goods.
Yeah.
Right? And we can't afford to have those feel good moments anymore.
This is where the hard work starts.
This
now.
is where the hard work starts. We have people that are awake and in a time that but awake to see what, right? You can be woke and see a bunch of things, but if you don't do anything about it, right? We have to move in a way that's powerful. Even us sitting here is a powerful connection to move forward. We have to change some things. It might be hard that you have to call that person out, but do it in love, right? Do it with intention. Don't use truth to cut somebody down. Use truth to expose something, and then pour something in good that where we can go from here.
That's right.
Right? And that's where we have to be as a country, right? People say all the time, why don't black people get over it? Because it hasn't stopped, right? If it stopped 100, 200 years ago, then we wouldn't, then we can be like, yeah, that's a little crying. But the fact that it has not stopped, it just changed forms, right? It just changed forms. It hasn't stopped. And now we have an opportunity to rip out that cancer, and it's not going to look pretty, right? It's not going to look pretty, right? There's some anger coming, but they said God was slow to anger. It never said that he never got angry, right? He said he was slow to it, right? So, right? So now it's time of righteous anger that we need to literally cultivate that into something productive, right? Put people that we want to see in making spaces. Like, I'm going to call it out, and it might not be nice, but we just had to defy the whole state to say we're going to have restaurants where you could come in and eat. Hence, the person makes $3 an hour. When you reopen, you took away their unemployment, right? They're forced to come back to work look, that is, and it's against the law. What the state said, how is that fair to that person? Because somebody wants to be served. I want to be served. I like to go out. I never cooked this much in my life. My son will tell you, he's like 3 or 4. We're sitting up in restaurants just eating, he always loves seafood or, squid or something. At 3 or 4, right? So I'm going to tell you as a person, right, that is the life that I love, but I love that person enough to say I'm going to stay myself home. And I'm gonna make me some breadfruit because I'm getting into different exotic things, right? I'm gonna make me, some this special eggplant with some ghee butter that I done figured out and Googled how to make it, right? Which it really is. It really is. That's how I'm, right? Right.
No.
So tell me about this ghee butter. I want to know more.
May I make a remark on something you just said that I thought was a great visual? Was that you said, when we rip out the cancer, it's not going to be pretty, right? This isn't going to necessarily be a clean surgery. We're not all surgeons. We just know what needs to be done, and people are just stepping up to do it. Yeah. But when you do that, it has to heal.
Yeah.
And that's the most important thing. It's like getting rid of the cancer is only one part of that. Healing after it is what really needs to happen.
That's right.
That was one.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
You can't go back to how things used to be. You got to take time and heal, and I think that's the hard part for a lot of people. It's easy to say, there's a problem, but now for you to take a sacrifice and actually put some things on the line that could affect you, and that's
part of the healing.
But in the long run, it's going to be worth it.
Absolutely.
That's right.
And go ahead.
Oh, sorry. So the other thing I was going to say was going back to a conversation we were having earlier, which was when you said, what do we do? The action needs to be taken, right? I think, and I'm speaking for myself probably 4 years ago. Okay, I'm speaking for myself after watching, I would say the Eric Garner video, maybe, right? I'm looking at this going, I am completely overwhelmed right now. I, watching this, knowing I need to do something, looked at the big picture. And once you start peeling that onion, it's layer after layer after layer after layer, you're like, oh my God, what? You get so discouraged so fast, you're like, what do I even do? The small actions are the ones that matter, those community ones. You remember we were saying that earlier? Like,
Absolutely.
what can I do? I'm not going to change the whole entire government of the United States by myself. That's like, who can do that, What can I do? I can change my town government. I can change my backyard. I can change my community, Mychal and I did how many events for kids to do the back to school drives that we've done, and the
So
food,
I have the paintings, yeah.
yeah, we do the food drives for Move for
Yes.
Hunger and things like that. These are small things that create big change in your pond, and I think that's something that more white people need to understand, because even the ones who want to open their eyes and want to do something immediately get overwhelmed because you have like, oh man, look at all of this. What am I supposed to do?
Yeah,
You could
absolutely.
do a little thing,
Absolutely.
and it could make and encourage the next person to do their little thing, and then all of a sudden you have a whole bunch of people in your community doing little things. Now it's a big thing.
Absolutely. And to that point, and before we started talking about ghee butter,
Which is
I
great.
think, which
Yeah,
is
yeah.
great. I believe it. One point that you were alluding to, Felicia, that I think is important is that we cannot separate civil rights and human rights from economics.
Exactly. Not
Right?
at all.
And you started talking about the
Yeah.
person working in the restaurant and things. The healing has to be around economics. There has to be some economic, reparations of some sort, whatever that means, but also just economic fairness across the board, right? In so many places, and I've talked about this before, Pastor Isaac, with African people, black and brown people getting the same shot at home and business loans, or getting equal chance at promotions in the job, or having equal pay, right? Because while we want to think that everybody's making the same, that's working on the same level, that is absolutely not the case, right? And finding ways that we can connect the economic, because if you really want to see the uplift of a people in a capitalistic society, capital has to be involved, right?
Yeah.
Capital has to be shifted from one place to the next, and we're looking. So today, my wife gave me early Father's Day present, as a bike, a hybrid men comfort cruiser. It's pretty cool. I'm excited about it, right? But they didn't have the exact one I wanted. And I'm like, when you get there, like, probably October. Like, October? Like, what is October? Is that a code word for, like, next week? They said October.
No, it's real, yeah.
And part of it is because a lot of the bikes are made in China, right? And so now there are all of these wars and tariffs and everything else. And so there's supposedly like 5 million bikes sitting on barges, but nobody will let them
Just talking
into.
about
We
it.
were just talking about it. He's a bike kind of. He's a bike builder.
Nobody let them into the ports. But it's not just bicycles. It's a whole lot of products.
No more 2-day shipping anymore.
No more 2 days. I know. Come on, Amazon. Right.
Yeah.
You used to be able to.
They cancel your order.
Right. Used to be able to get an iPad or something from Apple from made in China in like 3 days. You can't do it anymore. But I say that because part of the reason we have outsourced so many jobs is because the people at the top wanted more money that they could ever spend in their lifetime anyway. And so it's like, so what? You don't make $1 billion, you make $100 million, and the rest of that money is used to fund, factories and workers that are making products that American made, they're getting good pay, health, benefits for them and the family, pension, like all of that is possible. So we have to begin to shift from this top 1%, that's probably less, to the 99%. And I'm in no way, I'm not a socialist at all, but I do believe that there are fairer ways for our money to be distributed in the richest country in the nation. And so as we fight for civil rights, we also have to fight for economics and economic uplift of the people also.
And I'll say this too. I mean, it goes with each person too. Where am I spending my dollar?
That's it.
Every dollar's a vote.
Yes. Is my dollar going to supporting and building the community?
Yeah.
And
good.
fair hiring practices and wages and all these systems that are really keeping a lot of people down.
That's right.
But if I keep spending my money at X and X place,
Taco
won't
Bell.
shout at anyone else.
McDonald's.
I saw that one.
Right. Chick-fil-A.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm not gonna shout you out, but I mean, it's like double duty. I'm degrading my health,
Right.
as well as supporting systems that don't support us.
That's right.
It's a tenfold.
Yes.
And
Yeah,
this
and-
something, because I was just literally sorry to cut you off, but this outraged me. There was a business in town at the table. Everybody done been there. Have everybody been there in this room?
Absolutely. I
Right?
have.
It closed. It closed recently because it couldn't sustain itself. It was
was
there.
it? On Bond?
It was on
Bond
Bond
Street.
Street,
Bond and Bank.
right? And she was wonderful. She invested. She was actually the longest running restaurant down there, and the only black restaurant down there.
They were having poetry shows and stuff,
right.
Too, for a while. Yeah.
They literally. She went to the city after hearing almost a decade too late that there was funding to help support the business, to help for the needing improvements. So she went to the city and said, "Hey, if this ever happens again," right? And we went through the motions. I went through it. I told her we went through it together, right? To come out later, and we thought there was no funding. To find out last night that we've been sitting on for almost a decade, $100,000.
Wow.
And it just magically appeared, right? After she put in her life, her pension, right? Her health, right?
Sure.
And we didn't support her, and that funding was literally there for her, right?
Wow.
There's
From the
people
taxes she paid.
from the taxes and for initiatives that are literally cut out for small businesses and small minority businesses like hers, right? We have to hold people accountable, right, for this, right? That's how you start at home. It's breaking my heart every day. I almost was in tears last night when someone told me. I was like, wait, hold up a minute. Because immediately when they said this funding was available, I thought of her. Right, and I think about all the other businesses like the small shop in Railroad Plaza, the beauty supply shop that was there, and how she told me that she invested her life in it, right? Or the little market that was on Main Street, right? We have to start supporting those initiatives and making sure that it actually trickles out to us. That's something to do. To say, like, look, this ain't the culture that I want to make. This ain't the culture I want to live in. It starts as little as your home, then it spills out to your block, then it spills out to your neighborhood, to your whole. Look, it starts there, right? Charity starts at home and then travels abroad.
That's it.
Right, and we have to say that I'm not going to run to a rally, halfway, and I have halfway across the country, a couple states up, back and forth, because I'm National Action Network, so I bounce around, right, when they need me. But if I forget about home, then what good is it?
Yeah, that's right.
Right? If I forget about the people that love me and I know and I love, then what good is it?
You know what's interesting?
Love you, girl.
Sometimes it's easier for us to go somewhere else where people don't know us.
That's right.
And sometimes it's harder to go home, but home is where we're needed.
Exactly.
Home is where God can use us the most. And I want to thank you guys so much. And I pray that we could do this again. And just talking about the police so much, if there are some police officers that might be interested in being part of this conversation, I think that would be wonderful for the progress of this and
Open the dialogue.
and if it's okay, I know whether you
Last
want to call it.
solution I'll throw into
absolutely.
that, please, because I like what Officer Shanice and Officer Young are, because we work with them in the schools, and it's a very restorative model. And I think we have to start to look at restorative justice in our justice system. And we actually got a grant from the county to bring more restorative justice practices into Neptune and Asbury Park High Schools.
Nice.
But it's about really restoring the person and bringing you back to the wholeness. Understanding, you may have done something, and legally it may be a misdemeanor, minor crime, but like there's a reason why, and instead of filling our prisons, with misdemeanors and things of that sort, we can restore the person, help them understand and support them as they are learning and growing and evolving out of that. So I think restorative justice is something we really have to look at. I think the county is really setting a nice framework for it.
Well, throw
but we
some
have to-
in, because thank you for reminding me, right? There is
Sorry.
So I'm sorry.
I was trying
There is a massive changing. It's called Second Chance Agenda, where it expands expungements for criminal records from where it is now. That is kicking off, I want to say, the beginning of July. Right, where it gives an opportunity to 1.4 million people to have their records expanded from it is right now. That's life-changing.
That's good.
Right? It's an initiative. They floating. Everything they do up north, I try to steal and make sure they bring down here. Right?
That's why she traveled. That's why she traveled.
That's exactly why I travel.
That's what I did.
That's exactly exactly it, because then people know when I walk in the room, I'm Felicia from Asbury Park. And that's how I greet myself, that's how I announce myself when I'm in a room, and then people are like, oh yeah, that's Asbury Park right there, right? Because I want to know where I ain't leaving it at home. I want to bring all those wonderful things, and I don't mind helping up there so I can bring it back here and for it to work for us, the people I know who suffered from these things. So just to add on that restorative justice, we can piggyback some expungement on the other end, and make sure that we win. We all win, and our community win, so we can go back to work. And the economic justice of it all is, what is it? Reverend Al says, I don't need you to, support me and yay. I want you to get your foot off my throat, right? And another thing he likes to say, and I get out, he said, I don't need you to respect me. I just need you to work with me. What's the point of having justice if I can't have no economic justice? If I can't buy any bread, right? What's the point of having justice? We can all be equal, and I'm hungry, right? So what's the, we all of those things come together.
Absolutely.
And it's not like everybody say we live in the hood, and I said, first, you live in a beachfront community. Right?
That's right.
I said, and second, this is not an impoverished town. There's billions of dollars floating through the air, right? And what it is that we have to take it, right, and put it in avenues that actually benefit and heal. I heard from a senator, right, a former senator, it said Asbury Park is like a bucket with a hole in the bottom. To them, they feel they keep throwing money, and it just comes out the other end. We have to be mindful in how we allocate and put that money to use.
Go somewhere.
Because it's not like it's not here. It's here.
It doesn't. It goes
It
somewhere.
just doesn't go to the places that actually can benefit.
Wow.
So I'm chatty, so you got to snatch the mic.
I'm not
Giving it
gonna
back
do
to
that.
Pastor Isaac.
No, but what I was gonna say is in closing, I really am thankful for you guys and what you're doing, and I'd like to pray for you because it's not easy to do what you're doing. I know how passionate you are about it, but there's also some criticism, I'm sure, that you get, and some nights where you maybe don't sleep as well because of what somebody said or posted. So you need the Lord with you, and He is. And I just want to pray for you as we close.
Awesome.
Lord, we thank you so much, Father, that you are a gracious God, Lord. And I just pray right now, Father, for Mychal, for Felicia, Pastor Semaj, for Chris, Lord God, that you continue to give them wisdom, endurance to fight this fight, Lord God. I pray, Father, that you bring the right people to come alongside them. We rebuke any manipulative people that are looking out for themselves and their own, Lord God, but bring the right people to stand by them, to be able to push them and open the doors for them, Lord God. We pray for this city, Lord God. As Felicia said, this is a beautiful city. This is not a ghetto. This is beachfront property, Lord God. And everyone that has an opportunity to live here is blessed, Lord God. And we pray, Father, for those doors of blessing to open for every member of this community, Lord God, that they will flourish, Father. But in order for that to happen, we know change needs to come, Lord God. And we pray, Father, that as we are speaking and letting our voices be heard, Father, I pray now, Lord God, that the changes will begin to take place, Lord God. Soften the hearts of those who have been hardened to change for so long, Lord God. And we thank you for this opportunity to see justice come. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
And amen. Thank you guys so much.
Thank
Felicia,
you.
Chris, Mike, Pastor.
Yeah,
This was great.
it was great.
I guess that's our sign off,
Cool.
whatever.
Michael, you want to close with one of your questions?
No, I want to close on that. That was good.
Anything on the prayer?
You want to go first? And I'll
No,
go
I
second?
don't want to go. That was cool with that. That was a good ending.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Judy, you want to end
We could probably
anything?
top it though. I was like,
I'll do vulnerable. That's like my go-to.
yeah.
Yeah, and that is just an expression of the heart. So this is it. I'd rather have that awkward wave with no wave back than to not wave at all. I am strong enough to withstand the embarrassment. I have fallen many times before. I will get back up. Let my wave be a symbol that my heart is open with no shame. How dare I put up walls because of society's frame? A standard picture of what is normal. But I'm here to tell you that my love cannot be contained if I lose all else. My love is all that remains. I is all that remains. I am unbounded by misery's chains. My intention is to wave, why should I refrain and fear that yours aren't the same? My love does not change if your love is not the same. I will wave with no expectation of a wave back, because I've learned that unconditional love doesn't always love back. Unconditional love is all that we lack. If our love is unconditioned, then we will always wave back. My wave is a reflection of me. So when I wave to you, I only see me. It's this absence of unity that we see the division between you and me. So for all to see, open and honestly, I wave. No shame, no blame. I love, no attachment, no frame. I will wave again. I will love again.
I'm so glad we ended on that.
eyes, wow, even Judah, I was like, okay.
Judah,
I was like,
what'd you think of that, man? That was pretty awesome, right?
So softly about
I was like, wow, man.
We should have Mike do that at church one